game is an amateur game. I mean, the professional side of it, there are idols and heroes and fun to watch them play. But I mean, if it wasn't for amateur golf, there would be no golf.
You have to remember, when you play a golf course and you're out there for 4 hours or whatever, you're only hitting a ball for 15 minutes of that. So there's a lot of time to look around.
Hello and welcome to the Top 100 Clubhouse podcast. I'm your host, James Henderson. I'm joined by someone who was on episode 18 2 years ago. About 3 days and 2 years ago, we released our first pod together, and this is our second one. It's David McLay Kidd. How are you doing, David?
Oh, it's awesome to be here. Thank you very much. Excited to chat to a fellow Scot. I don't get to do that very often.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on again, because I think your podcast was one of our most enjoyed podcasts we've ever done. 2 years, and we still haven't managed to do any better. But right, we're on because we want to talk about what's going on at Streamsong. You've been brought in to be part of something that's pretty magical. Let's start by saying, is there a Mount Rushmore modern golf course architects?
Some people say yes. I mean, I would love to think that in my career, I've had a peer group, and the biggest exponents of that peer group are obviously led by Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw and Tom Doak, and more recently Gil Hanse. So those three I've always felt have been my peer group in terms of age to some extent, although Bill's a bit older. But there are many more now. I mean, there's a whole cadre of others that are in that. You know, Brian Slonick and Kyle Franz and Tyler Ray. There's a whole gaggle of people that are probably 10 or 20 years my junior, that are following in the footsteps of maybe the four of us. So if there is a Mount Rushmore, maybe I'm on it, and maybe it's those four. But we're being our heels are being bitten by a bunch of very, very talented, very hardworking young Turks who are building just phenomenal stuff. I mean, I look on the internet and I try and play the courses, and it warms my heart. I mean, when I first came to the US in the early 90s, I would get taken to the latest course by Pick a Tour Pro, and I'd look at it and I'd be like, what the is this? I mean, what is this? There's 3 bunkers on the inside of every dog leg. There's 2 bunkers either side of every green. The green's pushed up in the air like a birthday cake. It's just missing the flags or the candles. And I'm like, what is going on? Hole after hole after hole, lined with houses, bright green, flowering cherry trees, dye put in the lakes. And they're like, yeah, this is the best new golf course of 1992. And you're like, this thing is not appealing to my eye, is not appealing to my game, and doesn't look anything like any course I have ever seen in Scotland. Pick a Golf Pro. This is his links, the links of, whatever. And you're like, links? This is what? Talk about bastardizing a word. So jump forward 30 years pretty much. And now I hear, this is the latest golf course, by Brian Slonick, who's one of Tom Doak's proteges. You're like, holy shit, that is amazing. Like, the creativity, I've spent 30 years doing this. I know how hard that creativity is to create, to generate, to make happen, to get the lightning in a bottle. And I look at some of the stuff that's being done, and it blows my mind. I'm like, these are real. This is golf that's going to last millennia. Really, really good stuff. I mean, hearkening back to the golden age of architecture, looks phenomenal. So I'm thrilled that I may have played some small role 30 years ago creating Bandon to help move golf in the United States back to a much better place where the golf course is really focused on. It's not just an excuse to sell real estate.
Well, it's actually, that's a very good way of putting it. It must be quite cool being part of that club. that has developed golf and the golf IQ in America to a level now that that's what people want. They want to play on good golf courses, not just have a nice house in an expensive area. And that must be quite cool.
I think that, Western civilization, from what I can see, has just gotten to a point where we got so good at creating fake. Fake became so amazingly good, whether it's a fake golf course or a fake new movie or fake music, that we all realized that it was fake. And so there's just been this twist back towards authenticity, reality. And golf is a huge winner in that regard. Golfers want to go play through a landscape and feel like they're exploring it, and it's real. It's not this completely contrived thing that they're being tricked on. And Bandon, if we use it as an example, it was kind of the poster child right at the beginning of that, where people would go and play it and they'd think, this is pretty close to what must have been here. This is raw land with little modification to whack a ball around and try and get it in the cup 18 times. That's it.
You're completely spot on with that. And it's when you miss components in golf that you get in Scotland or at Bandon, where you have the ground game, as soon as you play any of these golf courses that litter America that are very contrived, the ground game's gone. It's soft, it's green,
the ground game, if I may say, we're still working on that here. That's still a challenge, right? I mean, I try my hardest to build these courses that I would say of my peer group, I would love to think that I am the most religious where the ground game is concerned. I am trying even harder, I think, than my peer group to make sure that the ground game exists. But it's all for nothing if the management, ownership, maintenance don't embrace that. I just opened a course in Austin, Texas, and we use Zoysia wall to wall, including the greens. Warm season grass is particularly difficult to accentuate the ground game. So we use this Zoysia grass, and the super there, Stu Nogler, had never really done anything like this. He never really worked on a course that accentuated the ground game, that was kind of a minimalist design. And I just beat the hell out of this poor guy the whole growing. I was like, if this thing is soft and spongy, you failed, man. I mean, if this thing is soft and spongy, you're not going to last here. This thing's got to be rock hard. Holy moly, did he excel? I mean, on opening day, that thing was rock hard. Greens were rolling. Everything was bouncing. I had to go to him like, Stu, I take it back. Like, you did it. Like, this thing is rock hard. You don't need to go any further, but you need to keep it just like this. You're hitting rescues into a par 5, and if you hit the right line, that thing's cascading another 50, 60, 70 yards, just tumbling down into the greens if you get the right line. And I'm thinking, this is golf. That is what I think is the essence of golf. And that's the only way you can get all of the diversity in play lines, right? If the only play line is this high arcing 6-iron that lands half a stick left, 2 hops and stops, how many players have got that?
Yeah.
Hardly any.
Well, we'll chat about that in a wee bit, because I actually have a few questions around that, particularly how to make golf courses harder for lower handicappers and easier for high handicappers, because there's definitely a golf somewhere. There's an issue with length being added to golf courses and made easy for Rory McIlroy, but not for myself, if that makes sense. Can we start off by you just explaining what is Streamsong?
Streamsong is a golf resort in Central Florida. Like, literally, if you played pin the tail on the donkey and took a picture of Florida and stuck a pin right in the middle of it, you'd be at Streamsong. It was an old phosphate mine that was mined for like 80 years. And the remnants of the phosphate mining were giant, massive piles of pure white sugar sand in this very random landscape. I mean, it looks like post-industrial Mad Max, sort of wild shapes. And back in 2012, Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw, together with Tom Doak, opened 36 holes there. And those two golf courses, which are called Red and Blue, that's the least creative part about the whole place. It's the names. Both courses are spectacular. You know, top 100 for sure. Ground game to the max. Tight Bermuda grass. All through this perfect white sand. I mean, you can't play there without sunglasses on. It is bright. The courses are phenomenal. So Tom Doak invited me to the opening in 2012, and I went there and I immediately fell in love with the place, loved the courses, loved everything about it, and thought if I ever got the chance, I would love to be able to add to this. And I spent the next dozen years courting the ownership, trying to get the chance to build another 18. And they went ahead and hired Gil Hanse. So about, 5 or 6 years ago, Black opened that Gil did. And I thought, oh, well, maybe they'll be successful and they'll need another one. And so the ownership group changed to Kemper Sports, who are the managers at Bandon and Sand Valley and many others. And they asked me to build the fourth 18-hole golf course there, as yet to be named. And so I had the chance last year to try and figure out how to weave another 18 into the mix of the 54 holes that were already there. I figured out how to get it to go in and out of Black's clubhouse, which is Gil's course. And we started construction earlier this year. And we went really hard. I spent basically every other week in Central Florida, which for a Scotsman in July and August was brutal. I've never felt heat and humidity like that in my life. But I survived it, and we finished the golf course. It's completely grassed out now, and it will open October next year. And I'm pretty sure the name is going to get announced pretty soon in the next few weeks, I expect.
There's been rumors about the name, so you can kind of Google it.
Super excited to see what people think. I loved going fourth instead of first, as I did at Bandon. It's a bit like Fast and Furious, right? The movie comes out, everybody loves it, and then you shoot the next one, or let's say Mission Impossible. I like that better, right? Tom Cruise has never made a bad Mission Impossible movie. In fact, some of them are better than the originals. Yeah. So the first two were the first two Mission Impossibles, and I got to make the fourth. When you're making the fourth, you know, the basic script is written, right? You're not creating from a position of zero. You are like, this is what Streamsong is. There's a certain narrative that's already been baked in, just like Bandon. And although the script is very different, I don't know how to explain it. The basic art,
DNA.
The DNA, let's call it the DNA. The DNA has to be somewhat similar, is somewhat similar. So, and you know what works because the place has been open for a dozen years. So we were able to get moving really fast. We didn't have to sort of second guess ourselves. Like this really works. This is what the DNA is. We're going to write our own script and we're going to blow and go and move really fast. So we built it basically in one summer and it'll open next year. Super excited to see it open. It is the exact same grasses as Red and Blue. Black used a little bit different. This one leans back into Red and Blue's grassing and a lot of the features that Red and Blue have. Similar terrain.
There's a wee bit of a link here because I know that when you did the Castle course, you did it because you wanted to do something completely different to the other courses at St Andrews. And is there no temptation to do something like that? Or is because Gil's already done that with the Black course at Streamsong? For people who don't know, Black course is very different to the other two. You kind of can go back to being like, okay, we're going to go back to classical golf course architecture that fits the DNA of this place. Or is there...
I guess that was our choices at the beginning, right? Respect the DNA of what makes Streamsong so loved, or try and do something completely different, create our own DNA out there. As you say, Black probably did that and is much loved. The site that we worked on was more similar to red and blue than it was black. And so it made more sense to me to lean into the DNA of blue and red and take inspiration from those, although, it's very different. The ground game is maxed, right? Every single hole, there's a way of getting to the pin and never hitting the ball more than, 2 feet in the air if you wanted to. There's a ground avenue of attack pretty much every single hole. There's hardly any force carries, almost none. So you can play the ball on the ground all the time, or you can throw darts through the air. The choice is yours, or some combo, which is what we Scots learn as kids, right? You're trying to figure out if the high game or the low game is the way to go. And I think that's the essence of great golf, is being able to not just think about the target you're aiming at, but the trajectory you're going to use to get there. And I think that even now, that is a tough sell here in the US. If you go for a club fitting here in the US, they want every club arcing at 100 feet in the air, pretty much, except your wedges. And, when I go for, I'm lucky enough to be very tight with Titleist, and I say, hey, I don't want my 7-iron 100 feet in the air. I mean, if you play Bandon and your 7-iron's 100 feet in the air, you don't know where it's going. So, trajectory control and using the ground is still something that is being discovered here.
There's a bit of wind there. I remember there was a bit of wind when I played.
Streamsong can be windy. It can be.
There's a bit of wind in Florida.
It's nothing like Bandon.
No.
So it's a breeze. It's coming out of the north or south a lot of the time, but nothing like Bandon.
Does that affect your design philosophy? Does that affect how you approach the golf course, how that wind was sitting?
Where, at Bandon or at Streamsong?
Definitely at Bandon, but at Streamsong, what would do?
At Bandon, 100%. I mean, every single day I was out there was a wind. There's never a day where it wasn't blowing, either 10 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour. At Streamsong, there were plenty of days where you're out there and it's barely a zephyr. It's nothing. So a lot less of an input there. But still, I worked really, really hard to figure out a layout where I'm trying to get a huge variation of shots in each 9, and then trying to make sure that those shots on each 9 are 180 degrees against one another, so that regardless of wind direction, if I'm asking you to play a short but not drivable par 4 on the front, the same ask is being made on the back, but at a different direction.
Yeah.
So that, that wedge, that 60-degree wedge on the front is downwind, but that 60-degree wedge on the back is into the wind. So now it might be a pitching wedge. So trying to get that huge variety and trying to bake it into the layout so that it doesn't feel forced, that the golfer is unaware. I think there's good golf course architecture. Hopefully there's a whole bunch of stuff baked into the design that the player wouldn't be able to deconstruct. They would have a hard time breaking it down into all of its component parts and seeing it. But they'd come into the clubhouse afterwards and they'd be like, that was a great round. And you'd say, why? And they'd have their own reasons, and they maybe wouldn't be able to figure out that the things I just explained, that the 2 drivable par 4s at Streamsong are exactly opposed to one another. So at least one of them on every single round, you are definitely green lighted to make that green if you're playing off the right tee. Yeah,
well, that's one of the big things. There's still an essence of that in America where long is good, but there's still an essence of it here as well. Challenges at the site. What's this sand like to work with? I've heard a lot of things, but it's like obviously quite a unique site.
The site is very variable because it was mined. So you're never quite sure what you're going to get. What you want is the deep white sand. And we had plenty of areas where we had just deep white sand that burn your eyeballs out. But then we had other areas where you scrape off the white sand and there's clay down there. And then you're having to do a bit more work to cap over the top of it and make sure that you've got a few feet of that beautiful white sand back on top. Not overly difficult, nothing massively challenging in terms of construction. So that really gives you a lot of flexibility from a creative perspective. You really get the chance to dream stuff up, and you're working in this, what I might call a post-industrial landscape, right? There's not a big of Streamsong that hasn't been touched by a mining company. So the shapes that are left by these giant mining excavators are very obtuse. They're very random and kind of weird. And that gave us the opportunity to recreate some of that and be, not limited, right? When you're working on a lot of sites, if you make a manipulation, you're very keen to make that manipulation look like it happened by Mother Nature, that you didn't do it. But at Streamsong, you don't have to worry about that. You're like, hey, some miner came through here and touched it all anyway. If we don't like what he left, we can manipulate it and make it look like something different. It just needs to look like the miner did it, not us, which is not God's hand. That is man's hand.
Is it easier?
It does. It makes it way easier. Yeah, it makes it way easier. We were out there a lot, just giggling to ourselves, either working through what the miners had left us or creating shapes that looked like the miners had left us, and giggling about the fact that at some point you're going to be out there shaking your head going, what the hell? Why is that in my way? And you won't really know if I did it or they did it. But one way or another, it's in your way. You're going to have to figure out your way around it.
It's a cool concept because it's also repurposing of land that was never going to be repurposed. It was just left.
This is a reclamation project. Everything at Streamsong is taking the mine remnants and bringing it back to nature and a good use. We had all sorts of fun creating shallow wetlands with deep pockets, knowing that that's where the baby gators would go. We knew, there are a lot of things out there I don't like. There's a lot of rattlesnakes and cottonmouths, and I'm not a snake fan. But the baby gators look kind of cool, and we had lots of fun, making ditch connections and making effectively new wetlands. And Mother Nature just adopts this stuff like damn near overnight.
It's crazy.
So it looks it has a certain sense of maturity really, really fast because stuff grows fast. The animals move in really fast. Any scars you make disappear damn near overnight. So by next October, with a full growing season, I expect this course to look very similar to the other three on opening day, which is kind of shocking.
Yeah, that is shocking because well, we saw a lot. There's a lot of wildlife there for an old phosphite mine.
There is a lot of wildlife. We were out there one morning, and this giant gator is dragging a deer across a fairway that we haven't finished yet. And we rock up on it in a side-by-side, and this gator takes a fright. It shakes this deer and rolls over and basically tears the entire back leg off the deer and then scuttles into the water. And on the one hand, you're mesmerized, and on the other hand, it scares the shit out of you because that could just as easily be your leg that it just tore off like it was at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I guess when you're moving the ground, so like they'll probably all run away and scatter. But when you're doing the seeding and doing the just walking the course to try and see if it is what you want. I can imagine when you start getting to the rough stuff,
they're not scared of you at all. I mean, we would be dozing stuff up, and we'd come back the next morning, and there would be giant gator tracks right through where we were shaping the day before. I mean, I don't think a gator's scared of very much.
No. Well, so you'd have to reshape things just because the gators.
No, it's just the footprints. But you'd see these giant footprints, and you're like, this thing came through here a few hours ago. They're perfect. If there's no one around, they're pretty happy to just walk right back through wherever we were working. So my wife bought me these sort of super high-tech snake gators that you lace up, and you have them all the way up to your knees. And so the first time I went there working early in the project, I put these gators on. They're supposed to prevent, rattlesnakes from biting you. So I'm wandering through the deep grass, like waist deep in this grass. And we're seeing snake after snake. There are plenty of snakes in that deep grass. So the next time I go, she says, why didn't you take your gaiters? I'm like, I don't need them. She's like, no, you need to take them. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, I don't need them. I'm not going in that deep grass. Like, I'm not going in there. Even with the gaiters on, I'm not going in there. There's too many snakes.
Once you get just get the equipment in there. Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll get it
those
sorted.
are first, me second.
Oh God. It's obviously quite a cool thing being involved in this. Would it be it is the only place in the world that you have, because Bill and Ben are one, but the four great architects of the modern era, right?
Well, that's
all
very
in
kind
one
of you to
place.
say. I guess Bandon, Gil hasn't worked at, and Pinehurst I haven't worked at. Those would be the two that I would think of. And so Streamsong's the only one so far. I have a desperate desire to work at Pinehurst at some point. So if Bob Deadman and Tom Pashley are listening, I would I got to manage that before I hang it up.
But there's something cool about that, right? So you've talked about how they give you. There's a lot of inspiration out there already to be able to then continue the design of your course, to do the design of your course. But how do you approach the fact, knowing that golfers are going there and playing all four, how do you approach the fact that how they would view the different golf courses? I
mean, you definitely want to try and build the best one, right?
There's competitive edge.
I had a set of clubs there. I still have a set of clubs there. I'm playing all the courses. I've been playing them since they opened. There's certainly a recognition that they're all really, really good. So we can't mail it in. We got to do something really cool. I definitely want the players to debate which one's best. I guess there's two things that golfers are looking at in order to perceive which one they think is best. And that's probably their visual memorability. You know, they're taking these photographs with their mind, and they're hopefully bold enough that they're remembering what they're seeing. And then there's obviously the sheer enjoyment of playing a golf hole. Whether you call it playability or challenge or strategy, whatever you want to call it, it boils down to the enjoyment of playing a golf hole. So those are the two things that my team and I are looking at holistically when we're laying out the whole routing. But then on an individual hole basis all this summer. I mean, every other week that I was on site, you're looking at, okay, this trip, we're focusing on the 6th hole. It is a north playing, drivable par 4, breaking right. How do we make this visually interesting? How do we get someone to pull their camera out of their golf bag and take a picture here? And how do we get them to come off this hole and say, holy crap, that was phenomenal. I loved playing this golf hole. I had an absolute blast. So how do we create that, right? How do we get them to lick their chops on the tee and feel like they can be aggressive and attacking? How do we put them in jail if they don't pull off the shot they would hope to? And how do we get them fully rewarded if they actually achieve what they were setting out to do? If we can create that whole storyline and drama on that single hole and then do it 18 times, I think we get ourselves in the debate. We hopefully end up in the bar with someone saying, hey, I know it's the new kid on the block, but I got a whole bunch of pictures of it on my phone and I loved playing it. I had an absolute blast. If I had to play just one, that would be the one. And so that's what we're trying to do. And Streamsong doesn't lose because it's got 3 world beaters already. So we just want to add to the mix, be part of the story.
This episode is brought to you by the Lockhart Travel Club. We believe golf is more than a game. It's a journey. A journey we've made across 34 of the world's top 100 courses last year, and now is your turn. We curate bespoke travel experiences for passionate golfers who expect nothing but the best. Membership is limited, so join us at lockharttravelclub.com.
It's a very cool site. There's nothing. It's very unique down in Florida. There's not much like it.
Streamsong is unique in the world, I think.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like Streamsong anywhere else on planet Earth that I'm aware of because of the mining operations. They had drag lines out there where the bucket was as big as a bus. I mean, literally the buckets were big enough to park like 2 cars in the bucket. And they were out there for 80 years with a bunch of those pieces of equipment where each bucket load was, the size of a couple of cars. And they're out there all day long for 80 years digging. So the landscape started out pretty unique and then became radically unique because of all that excavation that they did.
How do you compare your site versus the other sites?
Our site, Florida, as most people know, is pretty much flat, right? It's a sandbar between the Atlantic and the Gulf. But the sandbar has a high point, and that's where Streamsong is. So Streamsong sits about 150 feet, give or take, above sea level. And our site is actually on the highest point of the streams. They have 7,000 acres that Kemper own out there. Our site sits on pretty much the highest part of the ridge, right up at, I think we're at like 168 feet, our highest point, maybe 170. And so there are numerous parts of our site where you're actually looking out across red, blue, black, back to the hotel, into the other clubhouses. So it has a sense of being a little bit higher than the rest, but it still has a lot of the mine remnants. There are still a lot of these weird, funky shapes that we could start with, take inspiration from, and try to figure out how a golf hole could use these pretty radical shapes to create interesting strategy around.
Well, you've got it in red and blue, where red finishes playing round an absolute monster of obviously just a dumping ground.
And we have that all over the place. I mean, we have a ridge on the 14th par 5. The ridge is 50 feet tall, and it's a couple of 100 yards long, and it runs diagonally completely through the second shot of the golf hole on a par 5. And we cut a slot that was wide enough for a golf cart at first. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't think that's going to do it. It needs to be a bit bigger than that. And so we went to 2 golf carts and 4 golf carts, and eventually ended up about maybe 20 yards wide at the bottom. But it looks like a mountain range. When you're standing on the par 5 14th tees, it looks like there's a mountain range in your way. And you're like, well, what the hell? And you realize like this tee shot needs to get to a position where you're seeing through that gap. If you push it or pull it, you're going to be behind that wall and you're hitting over a giant mountain of ridge of sand blind into this par 5 14th green. So stuff like that is super fun. And the green all feeds in short right. So if you know the hole, if you got a caddy with you, he's going to, unless you can throw darts blind, he's going to tell you aim short right with a running shot, and that ball will feed down and onto the green. So Superb. Lots of knowledge to pick up, lots of things to figure out. I hope there's a puzzle on every single hole where the golfers are going to scratch their heads and think, how do I get my way through this Rubik's Cube? And that's hopefully going to be the debate back in the clubhouse. Every hole's a Rubik's Cube. And we used all these shapes to best advantage to enthrall and confuse and make it so that you have to explore. And once you figure it out, you're going to want to play again because you're going to realize like, oh, that's what was going on. Yeah,
I shouldn't have tried to go for it. I could have laid up here and had some fun.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because it's something that sheer. That's what took me by surprise at Streamsong is how sheer the faces of these sand dunes are. And you're saying
how do they stand up that tight?
Yeah.
If you take sand in Scotland and try and make it into a pile like this, it does this.
Yeah.
They're pretty soft. These things stand up like this.
Is it, if you take a bucket out of this stuff, does it just stay solid? Is it almost, I just can't comprehend it really.
Yeah, it's the sand is fairly angular. And it can actually be packed up into these pretty sheer shapes. And even with all the rain, it kind of stays there. It doesn't really move. Where the rounded particles of sand in Scotland, you try to make a pile like this, when it gets wet and the wind gets to it, it kind of melts down into more like this. So again, a very unique situation where you have this mined sand that actually is angular and it will stand up. So curious place.
How do you balance just creating something that is exciting to low and high handicappers, like without punishing one or the other? I say punishing, but punishing high handicappers.
That is a very, very difficult thing to do these days. I mean, it always has been difficult, but as the gap between the very best and average has gotten wider and wider and wider. When I first started in this business, the average player and the elite player might have been, let's call it, maybe it was 40 yards apart. I mean, what is it today?
Yeah.
Average guys hitting it 250 maybe.
Yeah.
And, a really good player's hitting it 320.
Yeah.
There's a much bigger difference in terms of yardage. And sure, there are a number of ways that you can challenge an elite player in and around the green. But in terms of not doing it with length, that's hard to do, because if that elite player is playing a short golf course, 7,000 yards, say, he's going to be hitting wedge into everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to get him to hit a shot other than a wedge into the greens. So at Streamsong, there was a request by the ownership. The resort gets a lot of requests to host top flight amateur events, Florida amateur, maybe other amateurs. Blue and red are too short. Black is long, but not long enough. So one of the things that we did with our course was we built the golf course at the 7,100, I think we had on the card when we first started. But everywhere we could find more yards, we stuck back tees in. I think we'll be 74 plus by the time we measure it all up. And you are trying to get those elite players to play a similar club as the average guy into the same green.
It's just
and then challenging the elite players. That's all about just pin placements. I mean, you start sticking pins in very dangerous places, then an elite player has to make a judgment call on just how good is he with that club in his hand. Can he get it close to the pin, or does he have to err a little inland to not take the punishment of the miss? For the average player, they're obviously playing a much shorter course, and you're giving them the ability to use the ground game so they can chase a ball in, where the elite players almost never do that. They're almost always throwing darts. So the average player has a chance to use the ground game, and the pins probably aren't in the most dangerous places on any given Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that's where my head pretty much stays for the average player. I mean, I'm an 8.5. I'm a little bit better than average, but I can have days where I could play as a 5 and days where I can play as a 15. So if I'm hovering around my game, I'm looking at, where could I put it? My drive, I'm probably carrying it 240, 250 if I really pop it. Maybe it rolls out to 260, 270. There's a reality to that. My second shots, my 7 irons, 150, 155. So I'm thinking about, what is that average player doing? What are the shots he's going to hit? I'm using the ground game a lot more. If I'm playing into a par 5 on a second shot, I'm not throwing that ball on the green. I'm looking for the avenue to get that rescue club to bound and chase and run and get somewhere on the putting surface so that I have 2 putts for birdie. And that's where my head's at.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's just trying to, we seem to be at an impasse in golf right now, where the only thing that is a solution is more tee boxes, more yardage, more whatever. And it just doesn't sit quite comfortable with me, because I'm quite a long hitter. Like I can hit the ball pretty far, and I find myself, I don't want to be on a separate tee box with someone who I'm turned up to play with that day.
I mean, you're a bit younger than me. My dad's 80, career superintendent. He plays golf twice a week in Essex, where he lives now with his buddies. And my dad was a 3 most of his life. Now he's an 11, but he's 80 years old. I mean, his best drive, 150 carry, 170 rollout, maybe best day. He and I can't play the same tee. I'm 100 yards past him.
Yeah.
So there's an inevitability that for him and I to have a reasonable game, even with 2 aside that I have to give him, I'm playing 65, 66, 100 yards. He's playing 59. And if we do that, we're having way more fun. It just doesn't work. If I moved up to 59, I'd be driving half the greens. And if I moved back to 65 or 66, every par 4 is a par 5. He's not reaching any of them.
Yeah.
So I think there's just a reality at some point that you have to admit that splitting the tees. I have this a lot with my buddies who are older than me. I have a lot of friends who are in their 70s now. And I say to them, hey, if you would move up a tee, we'd have a lot more fun together playing golf. I don't want to, they feel like they're giving something up. But if I eventually persuade them to move up a tee, they always have more fun. Now their drive and my drive is about the same distance. They may even be a few yards ahead of me. And now we might both be hitting 8-iron into the green.
Yeah.
Maybe they're hitting 7 and I'm hitting 8. There's a level of parity. And the closer you get to the green, obviously, the less it matters, right? Now we both miss the green and we've got wedges in our hand. It doesn't matter that my dad's 80, right? His short game's killer.
Yeah.
It only matters back at the tee where strength and flexibility are the real key. He doesn't have that anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I like a lot of the old boys I play with, really similar age, probably have played down at low single digits for most of their life. Like if you're 40, 50 years ago, I don't think people realize how good that actually was. Like that was a really quite a feat.
Persimmon Woods, Balata balls, maybe, probably not. My dad was too cheap for those.
But it's true, right? And so these guys are so tidy because of it, and they have to be. And you don't lose
very
it.
little isn't straight. It's just not far.
Yeah. So you just have to. Yeah, you're right. But then, how do you think handicap has to play? I just don't feel like the handicap is they've got that right yet for playing off different tees as well. I don't know.
Well, I guess it depends which tees he's posting his numbers from. It'd be a lot more fun if he was posting his numbers from that forward tee, that sort of 6,000 yard or a little under. If he's posting his scores from there, then all is good. That's a little different if he's posting his scores from 65, and then when I turn up, he moves forward to 59. Then I'm going to get my ass kicked. The handicap is very imperfect. And now that with the world handicap system and everybody's posting their own scores, I bragged about the British system for years. The fact that medal play decided the handicap. That was not something that anybody understood here in the US. But now that that's pretty much gone and everybody's posting their own scores, now it gets even more vague. The sandbaggers really have a chance to win every member guest. Like, I can't believe it. I shot a 74 off my 18 handicap. Like, what?
Yeah, sure. Well done. We know what you've done there. We get it. What do you want people to feel when they finish your course? What do you want them to do?
I realized when I built Bandon and it opened in 99, I'd sit at the bar at Bandon and I would just hear group after group come in, sometimes soaked to the underpants, right? And they are just huge grins, giggling, desperate to go do it again, even in shit weather at Bandon, right?
Yeah.
They had so much fun. And then I did build a couple of courses where I'd see that same foursome come in, chins on their chest, soaked through, cold. You know, they're like they'd been through a war, right? they're hugging one another like they survived it, not like they were brothers in arms. And so I realized that was the drug I wanted, was that first experience. I desperately wanted to know that all of my efforts and my team's efforts were for that foursome to come in just loving on one another, right? High-fiving, just have had a fabulous time together. They had this adventure. There was glory and defeat happened throughout the adventure in equal measure, one hopes. And they're desperate to go out and fight the fight again and find the glory and defeat all over again. And so that's my deepest desire for the new course at Streamsong. I want them to be up in the bar saying that David's course is the one I love the most. You know, I love them all, but I love that one the most. We had the most fun. You know, Bob made eagle and Bill made doubles.
Yeah.
And we all know we should have made birdie after birdie. We just couldn't pull it off, but we know we could, and we want to go try again. And so the drama of what we created played out for these people in real time the whole way through their experience. And that, you know, glory and defeat was handed to them on shot after shot. And if I can do that, then I win. That is what I'm after. I'm desperately not after 4 elite golfers to come in shooting 5 strokes over their +1 handicaps and saying, oh, yes, that's an amazing test of golf. Because that's going to be miserable for everybody else. Yeah. Nobody needs that. And we've had way too much of that in golf. That is what has been killing the game since World War II. From 1950 to 1990, you know, we were building golf courses that were much too hard, driven by real estate, concrete cart paths, wet with irrigation and covered in fake trees and blue lakes. I mean, it was just a recipe for the rounds to go down and down and down. And then Bandon Dunes and Mike Kaiser turn up and golf turns a corner and becomes back to what it is in the United Kingdom, especially in Scotland. And now you've got round numbers as high as they've ever been.
It's interesting because do you think it's because it's not a pro, it's someone who actually plays golf to the standard of not an average person, but there's variety in handicap, right? But there's actually handicap golfers designing these things. Do you think that matters much, or do you think the pro can...
Absolutely. I mean, look back to the golden age. You know, Alistair McKenzie wasn't a particularly good golfer.
Yeah.
Right. He wasn't one of the great triumvirate. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that we've got very passionate golfers with a reasonable game, but they're not tour pros. They're not even elite amateurs most of the time. They are probably paying more attention to the average golfer. Their bent is leaning into the landscape rather than just the golf. I think for a lot of average golfers, the walk in the park is a huge part of it, right?
Yeah.
Just the experience of the landscape they're in is a huge part of the enjoyment. I mean, I can have a pretty darn good day on the golf course and still not play very well.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I played for a club I'm a member of last week, and the first day I played like a full-on donkey.
We've all done it.
I was with a bunch of my buddies. The course was in peach condition. It was a beautiful day. And, you know, I got home, my wife said, how'd it go? And I said, yeah, it was a beautiful day. My score sucked, but I had a lot of fun with my buddies on the golf course. So, you know, but was that the important part? Yeah, that was a huge part of it. That was the most important part of it. The next day I played a little better, but, you know, I had a little more fun because I wasn't playing like a donkey. But the walk in the park thing is huge. And so I think we've gotten a bunch of designers in the last 20, 30 years that really, really understand that the walk in the park is a big part of it. The hanging with your buddies, and walking through a landscape that appeals to you, that in many instances feels completely authentic, is a huge part of the enjoyment. It's not just the score. Not that the score doesn't mean anything, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah, 100%. I've always loved when someone said great golf course, great company, and then never talked about their score. I'm going
to buy one of those hats that says no one cares what you scored. Right?
Have you?
I need that hat.
My bloody boss wears it all the time. Just stares at me with it and goes, it's such a good hat. It's so true though. No one does care. And I've got a lot of friends who've played golf for shorter periods of time, and they're so concerned about what we care about, how they play, whether we want to play with them. It's like, I don't give a no one cares.
I'm going to share a secret with you, as long as you don't tell anyone, right? This is just between you and me.
Hit me.
I've built 35 odd courses now that are in play. So there's a fair number of them. And I get people coming up who've enjoyed one of the courses that my team and I have created. And they say, hey, I really loved, pick one, Mammoth Dunes. I loved the first hole. I hit my drive out to the right. It tumbled down to the left. I had 160 yards in, second shot, pin was hard left. Of course, I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to go through all 18 in a minute. And I say to them, I quickly try and change it. I'm like, where was the pin on 18?
Oh, get around
well, the
quickly.
pin was, front left. I'm like, did you hit your drive out right, or did you tuck up the left-hand side? So they walk me through 18. They can't go back to 2 at that point.
Yeah. That's a smart move. That is a smart move.
Yeah, so just don't tell anyone. That's my trick. I jump them from 1 right to 18, and then hopefully we're good. We'll
get that edited out. Well, do you know the funny thing about it? We'll edit this out as well. I'm a member of North Berwick, played North Berwick my whole life.
Love it.
And everyone comes to North Berwick to play golf. Is massive golf, either a golf nerd or have never experienced anything like that in their life. And you speak to them after the round, and they all say, oh, I loved it, so much fun, blah, blah, blah. But they also say, I shot this. And I've always thought that North Berwick's quite an easy golf course because of the width. They show a lot of width. But there's a lot of times you'll be asked for very demanding shots, right? You'll just ask for a really demanding, and the payoff's amazing, like playing over the wall into the pit, whatever, for a high handicapper is a really difficult shot. But my point still stands that a lot of them score well, and they love it because they score well there. Does that change your perspective when you design golf courses?
Well, I don't think you should edit anything out. I'm happy to leave my story on 18. I back in 2010 or 11, I built the Castle course in Tethrow and Machrihanish, and they were all pretty tough. And I realized that I needed to kind of reevaluate where things were at. And I think one of the things I figured out when I thought about my own game is when you stand on a tee and the golf hole is enticing you to be aggressive, right? Where it fits. We say it fits our eye, right? And you can see an aggressive line that you want to take, but you probably also subconsciously or consciously see the opportunity to miss that line and still recover. Right. Yeah. Whether for me, I can hit a weak slice, right? So I'm seeing a tight line down the left-hand side of a long par 4, and it's guarded by a bunch of bunkers. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm downwind, wide fairway out to the right. I know that if I try and hit this super hard, the worst that's going to happen is it's going to be a weak slice right. I'm still going to be in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah.
It might take me out of the scoring line, but there's no reason I shouldn't try the scoring line. So I step up to the ball and I pull the trigger quickly and I rotate my weight through the ball and I crush this thing on a freaking arrow, right? I mean, right down the line I was aiming. Why did that happen? I would argue that happened because I was confident, right? I could tell that I wasn't intimidated. I could see a scoring line, but I could also sense that my miss was going to be somewhat accommodated. I wasn't going to be in knee-high rough.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't playing into a tight fairway. So knowing that, I started to build golf courses that built on that I want players to step up on the tee, and instead of their knees knocking and thinking, I'm going to lose a golf ball here, I'm going to be embarrassed when my buddies are off in the weeds hunting for it, I actually feel confident, and I'm going to rip snort this thing right down the line I'm aiming. Now, if they manage to achieve that and they hit it down the line they were aiming down, what did I do I wasn't there. It was you that swung the club, not me. You had a good golf swing. You needed the fundamentals of swing plane, weight shift, club face at impact. You needed all those things in order to hit it down that line. And you obviously knew how to do it. All I did was take away fear.
Yeah.
And if I, as a golf course architect, can take away the fear and allow your natural talents to come to fruition, what the hell's wrong with that? Is that not good?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a golfer and you have the ability to meet swing plane and weight shift and club face and all that stuff, I mean, hell, that's the essence of the game. That's what we want you to do. So North Berwick, if we pick on North Berwick, which is a course I absolutely love, and I've been playing it my whole entire life, North Berwick doesn't have that much rough.
No, it doesn't at all. It's none.
So when I stand on every tee at North Berwick, I feel like there's a green light just lit. I feel like F1 player, pole position, 2 greens just went up in front of me.
Yeah.
Right? And I can hit the ball down the line of intention with little fear. And so I start to hit the ball better, which means I start to score better. Does that mean that North Berwick is easy?
No.
Well, we both agree it's not an easy course, right? But if you have game and you can swing without fear, you start to shoot a lower score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Purely because, you are actually using skills you have without fear. And so the courses that I build, that's what I want to do the rest of my life. I want people to play the new course at Streamsong, and I want them to play without fear, right? I don't want to put you in a position where you're like, I just don't have this shot. I know I don't have this shot. I'm about to lose this golf ball. I want you to stand there and say, the caddy told me there's the line. I think I got a good chance of making it. And I want the average player to pivot right onto that left foot and beat the shit out of that thing and put it right in play. See that bloody arrow just sailing away into a blue sky. And that's where they say to themselves, I freaking love this course.
Yeah.
And what did I do? I didn't do anything. I wasn't there. You still had to hit the ball.
You just made it.
So when I hear people say, I played Gamble Sands and I shot my lowest score of the year, and somebody else whispers, oh, well, that's because the architect pandered to you. Dude, I wasn't there. You played 6,500 yards and you had to hit fairways and greens and hole putts. That was you, dude. That wasn't me. All I did was take away the fear.
Well, I've heard a lot of people say they've had a lot of fun at Gamble Sands. So obviously it's quite cool. And if that means that Streamsong, it won't be next time I go there, but maybe the one after that, I get to be able to play a golf course that gives you that feeling, that enjoyment, that excitement to be able to play without fear. I'm fully bought in.
Now, playing without fear doesn't mean playing without consequences.
Oh, 100%.
There are plenty of golf holes at Streamsong where I'm giving you the first hole. I'll give you a quick example. First hole has a pond in front of the green, and you need to hit 3-wood or driver down the left side of the golf hole to give yourself 8-iron across the pond and into a green that's basically in a bowl. So all you got to do, hit a reasonable tee shot down the left-hand side and 8-iron into the green. It's all good. The fairway is 120 yards wide. 80 yards of it from left of center all the way right falls off behind a massive, massive shape of open sand.
Oh, God.
And the farther right that ball goes, the more that giant shape of open sand comes in. Till eventually, if you were wide right, you would be fully blind over a 30, 40 foot high sand pile into a green that with water parallel down the left-hand side. So if you pull it just a little bit left, you're in the water. So when you stand on the tee, you're looking at this massive wide fairway. But if you snort a drive and it peels way the hell right, your second shot has real consequences.
Yeah, very much so.
But I don't want you having fear off the tee. So you're not losing the ball. The ball will be in just a good lie as if you'd hit it hard left. It will be the same tight lie, just a much, much more difficult angle in. So when I say I'm taking fear away from you off the tee, I'm not taking away consequences.
Yeah.
If you don't make the line, there will be a price to pay, I promise. But the price won't be lost ball. It won't be asking your buddies to go find it. You're just going to be out of position.
But that's fine. Out of position is completely reasonable. Like I agree, completely reasonable. But I'm giving you every opportunity to hit it down the scoring line. Look at the old course, same thing. Hardly an ounce of rough. No,
you can't lose a ball. You could, but you'd have to try hard. But the scoring line is very well protected.
Very well.
There's
protected.
a lot of scoring lines that you need to be pretty darn accurate with.
There's so much room left everywhere. The left's golden, except for obviously 9 and 10, where it's now right. But there's so much room, and anyone can just go for anything. But then, good luck getting next to the pin. It's almost impossible.
That's it.
You have those bunkers, little humps, whatever, that protect those fronts of those pins.
I tell my guys and myself, guard the scoring line. Everything else, you can pretty much give away. You can give it away or penalize, right? But the scoring line is really the only thing that as a golf course architect, you're really guarding heavily, is that scoring line, to make sure that the lower handicappers who are trying to get to that scoring line, if they're off of it by even a little, there's some degree of consequence coming in. But for the average player, maybe they identify the scoring line, maybe they don't. They're probably looking to the middle of the fairway most of the time. I love it when I can make the middle of the fairway the least appealing place to be. It's fun for me if I can create a golf hole where the widest, easiest place to hit is actually not the scoring line.
Yeah.
Where the edges come in as the scoring lines.
Well, that's just good golf course architecture, though, right? That's just...
It's fun to do, and it's fun to create that Rubik's Cube, knowing that golfers for hopefully millennia will scratch their heads and be told by caddies to hit it where they don't think they should be hitting it, and being told, well, if you want to make birdie, the middle's not going to help you.
Yeah, well, I've learned that over the years, that you can hit perfect shots, but if you're not thinking about where those perfect shots are meant to go, you're not got a chance.
Yeah,
it's a game of chess, not a game of muscle.
Chess, not checkers, as the Americans like to say.
Yeah. I got your top 5 favorite golf courses last time. I forgot what they were, but I've got them, and we're probably going to put them out.
Well, when you talk about the top golf courses in the world, there's a lot of, is it politics? There's probably some of that involved. There's a lot of new kid on the block, right? The latest and greatest thing to open will jump in for a while and then slowly drip back out again. It's a lot more than just the golf. I think that history plays a huge part of it. Augusta National would probably be a poster child there. If Augusta National wasn't what it is, I'm not sure it would rank as highly as it does. Probably similar for Pebble Beach, maybe. So I think for a lot of golfers, it is amusing to me how you can look at a top 100 list and figure that there are X number of people. How many people rank the courses in your top 100 list?
I actually don't know the number, but I think we're around that 100 mark.
Okay, so that's pretty low.
Yeah.
If you look at Golf Digest, they're in the thousands. It's like 1,500 or 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And they rank, Augusta National at number 3, let's say. Well, I'm absolutely 100% positive that of the 1,500 raters in Golf Digest rankings, 2 of them have played Augusta. Right? Or maybe it's 10.
Yeah. It's not many.
Sure as shit isn't 1,500.
Yeah.
And that anomaly exists all over the place, where you look at these lists and you're like, there are so few people have played that course. It's impossible to get on. How could all those people have ranked it so highly? Well, it's not that it doesn't deserve to be there. It's just amusing that they've put it in the ranking and they probably didn't play it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one that makes me chuckle.
I know that the number that we have played, the likes of Augusta and stuff, is quite high percentage-wise of our number of people, because the boys are quite conscious of it. There's a huge number of people have played the World Top 100 or things like that. So it's a weird one that I have seen regularly on other rankings, even ones within our the smaller rankings that we do, like county level or state level or whatever. Yeah. We're just like, you need to have thousands and thousands of people helping you out, and it's very difficult.
How's my course in Portugal doing in your rankings?
I got told the other day by someone playing it, everyone loves it. Don't worry, you're golden. Everyone absolutely adores it.
It's a fun course to play.
Well, everyone loves it, but I got told the other day, and this is something I'd really like to ask you about, is a guy said, I loved it, but the maintenance wasn't there. And I was like, how does that affect like the feeling of building something fantastic and then them losing a green or having an issue with the maintenance? How does that affect someone like you?
Yeah, that's brutal. That is a really tough thing from my point of view. Is I don't own these courses. They're hopefully works of art that I'm commissioned to create for someone else, and they can adjust them as they see fit. I can bitch about it if I want, but they can. It's theirs. I don't own it. They can maintain it really well or really badly, and I don't have any. I can bitch about it if I want, but it might not do any good.
No, but it's more the fact that it's I'm sure it's an accident that would have happened in any golf course. I know. Maybe I can say it, but I know Royal Melbourne have had a load of problems with the fescues around their greens. One of the top 10 golf courses in the world. We're not slagging off every golf course. It happens. You have accidents, and it hurts you when one person's making one trip for the rest of their life, never going back, and they don't see it at its best. And it
affects their experience. There's no doubt. I mean, what would you rather have, a really good golf course in poor condition or a mediocre golf course in phenomenal condition? Whether you like it or not, the average golfer is going to pick the latter.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? An average golf course in immaculate condition is always going to appeal to the average golfer more. I mean, the people listening to this podcast would not agree, because they're listening to this because they're like you and I, they're golf nerds, right? Yeah. I'll play Royal Melbourne in, bare sand because it's world class. But if I take my buddies there that don't know, like they're not aware this is Royal Melbourne and it's one of the top 10 courses on planet Earth, they'd be like, hell, this isn't as good as our club back in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
Would see the conditioning. So conditioning is incredibly important, and it does make a difference. And good maintenance is essential to the overall experience for a player. It's essential. I can do my best work, and if the course is not presented in pretty good condition, then it will suffer. Just like you said, people will go away saying, the course was good, but the conditions weren't very good. And someone else will make a decision on whether they want to go there or not based on that comment.
Yeah. It's such a shame because, as you say, it's works of art. It's like, okay, sorry, I've just got another question about, in terms of works of art. I know that there's a lot of chat about the old course, them doing changes, adding few bunkers and tees. Do you think something like the old course should be like a listed building and not allowed to change it? Or do you think it should develop with the times?
That's a great question. And there are plenty of courses that are held in such high regard that they make few or any real changes to stay current with the game. I think the choice for the old course and many others, Augusta would be another one. If you want to stay current with the game, then you have to adjust for the game. If you're unwilling to do that, then you're perfectly at liberty to hold the golf course in stasis, to be a point in time, and not to try and chase the ever lengthening distance by elite players. So I think these classic courses have two choices, and there are plenty that do not chase the modern game. There are plenty. I'm trying to think of good examples. There are plenty of them that don't add back tees, that haven't gotten any longer. Swinley Forest, there would be one I'd pick in the UK. Swinley Forest is nowhere near 7,000 yards long, does not host tournaments of any high regard, high amateur level tournaments, and is a phenomenal golf course to play. One of the most fun golf courses in England.
Prestwick's another one.
No attempt to chase the modern equipment. They're perfectly at liberty to do so, and I'm glad they're doing that. However, do I want to watch the Open played at St Andrews every 5 years for the rest of my life? I do.
Yeah.
And if I do, then I have to be willing to allow the course to be adapted to still create challenge for those elite players. I would tend to lean in the direction of keeping the old course up to date. Obviously doing so in a very respectful manner, but keeping it up to date. I don't want to see Rory and Bryson go around the old course with drivers and wedges.
Well, I guess the good argument for saying the same thing is that there's been 30 odd people that have probably done something on the old course. You know, it's not like it's been a living form of a golf course since it first conceptualized. It wasn't designed; it's just developed.
I have to say that when I built the Castle course in 05, 6, 7 in there, the Links Trust asked me to look at a couple of things on the old course. They wanted to reshape the bunker on 17 and a couple of other things. And, you know, that was almost 20 years ago. I was in my 30s. I have to say I was intimidated. I did not want to touch it. I realized how emotive it is. I felt like I didn't have the chops to be able to touch the old course. I look back at that now and I kind of wish I had. But at the time, I however confident I might appear, I really did not feel confident touching the old lady.
It's a poison chalice, right? It's a
kind of is, but I wish I had.
Yeah,
I wish I had.
I heard a rumor the other day about the Castle course that they're wanting to do something to it. Do you know it? Have you heard anything?
Nothing. You know, the Links Trust don't stay in touch too much, so I don't hear very much. I would obviously love to be part of that conversation. I am on virtually every other course that I've ever done. I go back and consult with and tweak and adjust, but the Castle course, I don't know whether the Links Trust is worried that I might bring controversy with me, as happened at the time when we were building it. But I think that ship's long since sailed. I would love to be part of those discussions and see, how the Castle course morphs during my lifetime. Obviously, when I'm dead and gone, someone else will do it. But at least during my lifetime, it was my creation. I would want to be involved.
Yeah, very much so. Well, David, thank you very much for coming on and having a chat with us. It was very insightful. A lot of very fun and interesting topics that a lot of my listeners wouldn't know about in terms of golf course architecture. Very insightful. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Anytime. It's every 2 years and 3 days, right?
Every 2 years and 3 days. I'll see you in 2 years and 3 days.
Top100golfcourses.com has set the standard for golfers worldwide, and now you can wear that standard proudly. Premium apparel and exclusive gear for those who truly know the game. Shop now at top100golfcourses.com.